I disappeared from town for exactly 3 weeks, and when I came back, there was something sitting smack in the middle of my land that I honestly didn't know whether to call jet lag hallucination or a concrete slap in the face. A full-size sports court, one solid slab of poured concrete. Freshly painted lines. Steel light poles bolted into brand new footings, and it was planted right across the walking trail on my property. Not hugging the edge, not barely encroaching, but the kind of bold that says, I've decided this belongs to me now. But the worst part wasn't the concrete. The worst part was standing there stunned in the woods while my neighbor said, as casually as if he were asking for extra sugar in his coffee, "Oh, we didn't think you'd mind. I own 11 acres of forest in western North Carolina, just outside a small mountain town. The kind of place where mornings are so quiet you can hear wet leaves fall, and nights still feel honest in a way busier places forgot a long time ago. I bought that land back in 2004, right after a divorce, the kind where you don't just lose a marriage, you lose your sense of who you are. I needed a place with no opinions about me. No one looking at me and sighing. No neighbors asking, you doing okay? In that tone that means they already decided you're not. I needed trees. Water. Sky. The land is mostly hardwood forest, a spring-fed creek, and a half-mile trail that winds through the woods like a lazy thought. That trail's been there since the 70s, long before I showed up. It's documented in the original survey. And most importantly, it's protected under a conservation easement with the county, the kind of agreement that basically says, leave the forest alone and let it be what it is. No commercial development, no permanent structures, no concrete, no flodlights, no big ideas. For 20 years, I treated that place like a promise. Cleared fallen trees after storms, replanted native species, kept the trail open. I worked closely with the local conservation officer, Marty, a man who takes that easement more seriously than some folks take church. I don't mean that as a joke. He treats conservation law like it's sacred. And to me, this land isn't empty space. It's not unused property. It's alive. It breathes. It supports an ecosystem you only notice if you slow down long enough to see it. Then last spring, a couple from out of state bought the estate bordering my southern line. They renamed it immediately, called it The Haven. The branding alone told me something. When a place needs a retreat-style name, odds are the people naming it believe they're here to redefine the area. Their names were Caleb and Nora Whitmore. Early 40s. Tech money. Rumor was they'd sold a startup in Austin and moved here to live intentionally. Nora said that exact phrase the first time we met, smiling like she'd practiced it in the mirror. We just want a more intentional life. I was dragging a broken maple off the trail when Caleb jogged over. Brand new trail shoes, so white they looked like they'd never touched dirt. "Hey man," he said, cheerful, barely winded. "This is all yours?" "Yeah," I said. 11 acres. He whistled. "That's incredible. We're trying to build something special over there. Community, wellness, you know." I nodded politely. I've lived long enough to know that when someone says community, it often means other people are expected to adjust their lives to fit that vision. He asked about deer. About wildlife. Then he asked if the trail was open for neighbors. "It's private," I told him. "And it's under a conservation easement. Not open to the public." He smiled, that slightly amused smile that says, "That's cute," and replied, "Of course. Totally respect that." 9 weeks later, I flew to Spain to visit my sister and her kids. I was gone exactly 22 days. I remember because I counted sunsets there, thinking about the filtered green light back home, the way sunlight moves through my trees. The night I got back, I'd just come off a red-eye flight. As I pulled into my driveway, before I even shut off the engine, something felt off. There was a low hum in the air. Not wind. Not insects. It sounded like electricity, faint but wrong. I dragged my suitcase down toward the southern part of the trail, still foggy from travel. And I stopped so suddenly it felt like the blood in my body froze. A massive rectangular slab of concrete cut straight across my trail. Fresh. Bright white painted lines. Adjustable hoops on both ends. Industrial steel light poles anchored in reinforced footings. Crushed stones spilling into the underbrush. For a second, I swear, I thought I was hallucinating. I actually laughed. Short. Dry. Disbelieving. Then I walked up and touched the surface. Cold. Hard. Real. It didn't just overlap the trail. It erased it. The entire switchback leading into that section had been flattened to pour the foundation. They carved out a piece of my forest like it was their backyard. I called Caleb. He answered on the second ring, upbeat as ever. Hey neighbor. Welcome back. You poured a sports court over my walking trail. A pause. Not surprised, calculating. Oh, he said lightly. We thought that was just a deer path. Contractor said the clearing was perfect. Didn't think anyone used it. I use it, I said evenly. It's under a conservation easement. You built on my land. Another pause. Sharper. Well, if there's a misunderstanding, we can review surveys. Our team did due diligence. You didn't talk to me. We didn't think we needed to. There it was. Not hostile. Just assumed. I have a survey, I said. I'll send it. Sure, he replied, voice cooling. And if you feel strongly about it, have your attorney reach out. Have your attorney reach out. I stood there staring at that slab of concrete like it was a monument to audacity. The thing that burned wasn't just the concrete, it was the speed. You don't clear trees, level ground, haul materials, pour reinforced concrete, install lighting all in under 3 weeks by accident. This wasn't a mistake. It was a decision. That night I walked the boundary with my old survey, checking iron markers I'd tied faded ribbons to years ago. They were exactly where they'd always been. The court encroached 10 feet into my property. 10 feet doesn't sound like much until it's solid concrete. I barely slept. The next morning anger turned into something steadier, resolve. I called my attorney, Daniel Harper. Not flashy. Drives a pickup. Specializes in land and environmental law. I've known him 15 years. He walked the site the next day, studied the edge, crouched to look at the rebar pattern. They didn't misunderstand, he said quietly. They violated. That easement made the structure illegal regardless, and the boundary made it trespass. We give them a chance to remove it, Daniel said. If they don't, we go to court. That Saturday they hosted an event. Music thumped through the trees. SUVs lined their gravel. People in athleisure. Folding chairs. A banner stretched between the light poles. Haven Hoops Invitational. On my land. Kids playing. Adults cheering. Nora handing out green smoothies like it was a fundraiser. I walked onto the court. The ball stopped bouncing. Caleb jogged over, smiling. Hey, we were going to invite you. You need to shut this down, I said. Shut down what? This. It's on my property. His smile tightened. County maps are ambiguous. We have a professional survey. So do I, recorded 20 years ago. We've invested a lot, he said. This adds value to the community. It violates a conservation easement. He exhaled slowly. It was just brush. We improved it. Improved. That word landed heavier than the concrete. 5 days, I said. My attorney will send formal notice. He smirked. You're serious? Completely. Then lawyer up. The court date came fast. The judge, Elaine Whitaker, had a background in environmental law. Daniel presented the recorded survey, the easement language, photographs. Marty testified, direct violation. No permit. No possible permit. Their attorney spoke about community benefit and good faith development. The judge asked one question. Before construction, did you confirm the boundary directly with the adjacent landowner? A pause. No, Your Honor. The silence in that courtroom felt heavy. The court finds the structure sits within the plaintiff's property and violates an active conservation easement. Immediate removal. No stay. Immediate. No delay. Outside, Caleb approached me, jaw tight. You really want this? I didn't pour concrete on your land, I said. The demolition crew arrived 2 mornings later. The first crack of the hydraulic breaker echoed through the woods like thunder. Concrete doesn't shatter in one dramatic moment. It surrenders in pieces. Painted lines split. Rebar exposed like bone. Light poles lowered to the mud. I expected to feel triumphant. What I felt instead was alignment, like something crooked was being set straight. Caleb showed up furious. Nora paled behind him. This is destruction, he said. This is restoration, Marty replied. Within hours, $48,000 worth of community vision was rubble in a dump truck. They sued me afterward for damages. The judge dismissed it quickly and awarded me attorney's fees. $12,300. 6 months later, a for sale sign went up on their property. Now when I walk that stretch at sunset, the scar is fading. Native grass coming back. Deer tracks crossing right where the free throw line used to be. No flodlights. No vas. No bouncing ball. Just wind through hardwood leaves and the quiet rhythm I chose. And here's the part that still unsettles me. This was never just about land. It was about pace. About a culture that believes anything quiet must be activated, anything not visibly productive is wasted. Caleb truly believed he was improving something. I truly believed I was protecting it. Maybe if he'd knocked on my door first, walked the boundary with me, listened, we could have found something shared. But he mistook my silence for vacancy. And that's the hard lesson. Sometimes people don't ignore boundaries because they hate you. They ignore them because they genuinely believe their vision matters more than your existence. So I'll ask you, if someone builds for the community on land that isn't theirs, does intention matter? If it brings joy to many, but overrides the rights of one, where do you draw that line? Was I right to demand immediate removal, or should I have compromised for the sake of neighborly peace? Even when that peace began with concrete on my property. I'd honestly like to hear your take.